Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the anatomy of a trend, specifically the scary, true horror phenomenon. We're looking at something absolutely fascinating that's literally hiding in plain sight right on your screens. We're going to examine how everyday, mundane metadata actually reveals the massive, quiet success behind one of the internet's most captivating genres. It's the true horror story phenomenon. We are exploring a very specific corner of the web that has basically figured out exactly what keeps us awake at night. And through the data, the titles, and the formats, we're going to see exactly how terror is packaged, optimized, and then delivered to millions of eager viewers. So get ready, because the anatomy of this trend is both brilliant and honestly, kind of chilling.
To start us off, I want you to ask yourself this. What makes a simple game of hide and seek so terrifying? Think about it. It's a game we all played as kids, right? It's innocent, it's fun, it's purely nostalgic. But when you take that super familiar childhood activity and you just twist it a little bit, well, it becomes instant viral nightmare fuel. It's really that sharp psychological contrast between the completely safe and the deeply sinister that hooks us immediately. And, as we're about to see, taking the innocent and making it horrifying, it isn't just a fun creative choice. It is the literal foundation of a massive digital empire.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the foundation of this digital empire, we just need to look at the sheer scale. 7.09 million. That is the subscriber count for a creator named Mr. Nightmare. To put that into perspective for you, that is more than the population of many major cities, all subscribed just to listen to scary stories on the internet. So we're not talking about some tiny, niche underground community here. This number immediately validates the sheer, staggering scale of this online phenomenon. It totally proves that the appetite for this very specific type of content is absolutely enormous.
Just look at the engagement on a single upload. We have a video titled 3 Scary True Hide-and-Seek Horror Stories, uploaded on October 14th, 2025. It pulled in over 961,000 views and 28,000 likes. Guys, we're talking about nearly 1 million views for a 22-minute video about a child's game. It's crazy. These impressive engagement numbers prove just how hungry audiences are for this highly specific format. It is not just a passing glance either. Viewers are clicking, they are staying, and they are returning to this content in droves.
But that massive engagement isn't an accident. It's actually the result of a highly intentional, almost machine-like formula. And what's really interesting about this slide is how formulaic and intentional the packaging of terror actually is. If you look across the channel's metadata, a totally distinct pattern emerges. First, you start with a specific number. 3, 4, 10, or even 18. Then you add high-stakes adjectives like scary, creepy, or terrifying. Next, and this is absolutely crucial, you include the capitalized word true. Follow that up with a highly relatable setting or a mundane activity, and finish the whole thing off with the phrase horror stories. So you get 3 scary, true hide-and-seek horror stories, or 4 creepy, true boardwalk horror stories. It is a perfectly calibrated recipe for a click.
Now, to make that formula actually work, creators rely on this matrix of relatable, everyday settings, weather conditions, and mundane activities. You have locations like a boardwalk, a beach house, or the woods. Then you pair that with weather or seasons, like thunderstorms, fall, or winter. And finally, you inject mundane activities into the mix, things like fishing, working the night shift, or reaching the end of the school year. By using this matrix, the creator roots the horror in our actual, everyday reality. Psychologically speaking, this is brilliant because it makes you, the viewer, feel vulnerable in your own life. It's not happening in some haunted castle on Mars. It's happening during a thunderstorm while you are working the night shift. And that right there is how you consistently generate millions of views.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because it's not just about what the story is. It's really about when it's told. If we trace the chronological metadata, a genius cycle of viral terror emerges. The creator brilliantly aligns their content with real-world seasons and events for maximum impact. For example, 11 months ago, a general but terrifying Someone's Outside video hit 2.4 million views. But look at the seasonal alignment here. 7 months ago, right in season, Fall Horror Stories pulls 1 million views. 5 months ago, Winter Horror Stories hits 927,000. And just 20 hours ago, aligning perfectly with the actual calendar, End of School Year Horror Stories is already at 215,000 views. It's basically a localized, seasonal event strategy directly applied to internet horror.
Now, Mr. Nightmare isn't operating in a vacuum here. We're looking at a whole horror ecosystem. While titans like Mr. Ballin command an incredible 3.3 million views with highly produced, bingeable narrative formats, there is an incredibly vibrant middle class of creators thriving right alongside them. You have channels like Darkness Prevails generating nearly 100,000 views for stories about hikers in the Swedish woods, and creators like Ripshy pulling in 32,000 views for 10 scary true horror stories. This data tells us that this isn't just one lucky channel. It is an entirely self-sustaining media ecosystem where creators of all sizes can and do find a really avid audience. And within this massive ecosystem, the formats vary wildly to match our personal consumption habits. So you have the standard narratives, like our hide-and-seek example from earlier, which usually sits in that 22 to 28-minute pocket. These are highly focused, themed narrative blocks. They're super digestible. But then you have the extreme binge format, offered by channels like Whispered Diaries. We're talking 3+ hours of true night shift horror stories told in the rain, sitting at 1 million views. This really emphasizes how different creators cater to our desire for long-form consumption. Whether you just want a quick 20-minute scare on your lunch break or literally 3 hours of ambient, rainy terror to fall asleep to, the ecosystem provides for sure. But to really understand where this true scary format actually comes from, we have to look at its roots. And the metadata brings up a really essential term here: creepypasta. By definition, these are internet horror stories, often originally presented as true, that were specifically designed to be copied and pasted across forums and message boards. It's almost like a digital campfire. A classic example found in our data is Dr. Wicket's story about a night guard at a mall, complete with very specific rules to follow, which alone pulled over 360,000 views. The true scary format we see dominating today evolved directly from these fictional, rule-based internet legends. And as the data shows, it still competes right alongside them in the algorithm today. So the crucial point is, how do you keep this huge content machine running year after year? Well, the answer is actually right in the video descriptions. Look at this direct quote from Mr. Nightmare's channel. Anything with poorly structured sentences and grammar will not be read, so please just make them neat and understandable. This entire multi-million view empire relies directly on fan-submitted stories. It's wild. The audience experiences something scary, they write it down neatly, they email it in, and the creator turns it into a video that the audience then watches. It creates this brilliant, self-sustaining loop. The viewers are the audience, they're the subject, and they are the writers. They're basically providing an endless, free supply of nightmare fuel. Which brings us right back to you. We've seen how the most mundane settings, the boardwalk, the night shift, a simple thunderstorm, or a fun game of hide-and-seek, can be engineered into a multi-million view phenomenon. So, I'm going to leave you with this question. What mundane, everyday activity do you fear the most? Because chances are, your fear is part of a viral formula right now, just waiting to be packaged, uploaded, and listened to by millions. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you look at the YouTube algorithm and maybe your next walk in the woods just a little bit differently.